The silence of space had never felt so heavy. Captain Mara Kalin stood at the viewport of the research cruiser. Aurora's wake, staring into the void that had become both prison and purgatory. The shattered asteroid field surrounding them glittered in the distant starlight, beautiful and indifferent to their suffering. 2 years. 2 years since their last real communication with Alliance Command. 2 years since their distress calls had faded into nothing but static and automated responses. "Status report," she said, her voice hollow, even to her own ears. XO Joran Tave cleared his throat behind her. Always the pragmatist, always ready with the facts, no matter how grim. Life support stable at 43% capacity. Food stores will last another 8 months if we maintain current rationing. Water recycling at 91% efficiency. And fuel. A pause. 16%, Captain. Enough for one solid burn if we ever find a destination worth reaching. Mara nodded, not turning from the viewport. The stars beyond shimmered cold and distant. She could feel Joran hovering, wanting to say more, but hesitating. That was new. Time was when her XO would speak his mind without prompting. "Just say it, Joran." "The crew needs something, Captain. Hope, direction, anything." Now she did turn, meeting his eyes. Once they had sparkled with ambition, with the certainty that their research mission would earn him a command of his own. Now they held only pragmatic determination to survive another day, another week. "What would you have me tell them? That Alliance Command is coming? That some miracle will sweep in and save us all?" Her voice was harsher than intended. "I'd have you tell them something, Mara," he said quietly, using her first name for the first time in months. "They need their captain." Before she could answer, the comm panel chirped. Both officers startled. Unexpected sounds had become rare aboard the Aurora's wake. "Bridge, this is Science Lab. Captain, I need you down here." The voice belonged to Dr. Celine Rowe, their chief scientist. Even over the comm, her rapid breathing was audible. "What is it, Dr. Rowe?" Mara asked, already moving toward the lift. A pause. "A transmission, Captain. We're receiving a transmission." Mara and Joran exchanged shocked glances before rushing to the lift together. The science lab was the only section of the ship still fully powered. Dr. Celine Rowe had argued fiercely when Mara had proposed cutting power to preserve fuel, insisting that if they were to die out here, they should at least attempt to complete their research mission. The Alliance had sent them to study the unusual radiation signatures in this sector before their systems had failed and left them stranded. Celine had refused to abandon that purpose. Now the slender scientist stood hunched over her console, dark curls falling around her face as she manipulated controls with practiced precision. She didn't look up when they entered. "Celine," Mara said, "what have you found?" "Listen," the scientist replied, hitting a command. Static filled the room, then cleared to reveal 3 words in a clear human voice. "We see you." The message repeated those 3 words, cutting through weeks of radio silence like a knife. "When did this start?" Joran demanded. 14 minutes ago, Celine replied, finally looking up. Her eyes shone with something Mara hadn't seen in months' excitement. "It's broadcasting on a frequency we normally don't monitor. I only caught it because I was running a broad-spectrum analysis of the radiation belt." "Origin?" Mara asked. Celine shook her head. "I can't pinpoint it. The signal's bouncing off the asteroid field. But it's close, Captain. Very close." "It could be a trap," Joran said quietly. "Pirates have been known to lure stranded ships with fake distress calls." "This isn't a distress call," Mara pointed out. "They're saying they see us." "Which means they're watching," Joran countered. "Not necessarily friendly." Mara studied the readout on Celine's screen. "Can you send a response on the same frequency?" The scientist nodded. "What should I say?" Mara leaned forward and pressed the transmit button herself. "This is Captain Mara Kalin of the Alliance research vessel, Aurora's Wake. We read you. Identify yourself." They waited tense seconds, stretching into a full minute. Then the reply came clearer now. "Captain Kalin, Your ship has been designated overdue for 26 months. Alliance has listed all hands as presumed lost. A pause. We are not Alliance. Mara felt her crew stiffen beside her. She kept her voice steady. Then who are you? We are the hidden line. We walk the shadows between stars. Another pause. And we can help you if you wish it. The hidden line. Mara had never heard the name, but something in the speaker's tone, a human voice, certainly male and confident, sent a chill down her spine. Not fear exactly. Recognition of power. How do we know we can trust you? She asked. A low chuckle came through the speakers. You don't. But consider your alternatives, Captain. We can talk face to face if you prefer. We're coming to you now. The transmission cut off. Scan for approaching vessels, Mara ordered. Celine's fingers flew across her console. Nothing, Captain. No engine signatures, no heat blooms, nothing on radar or lidar. They're coming, Joran said grimly. Whoever they are. Celine suddenly jerked back from her console. Energy spike port side bearing 147. They rushed to the viewport just in time to see space itself seem to ripple like heat over desert sand. Then, materializing as if from nothing, a ship appeared. It was unlike any vessel Mara had ever seen. Sleek and predatory its hull, a deep black that seemed to drink in the starlight, rather than reflect it. No visible engine ports, no standard running lights. It was approximately half the size of the Aurora's wake, but something about its configuration suggested it carried far more firepower. Cloaking technology, Joran whispered awe, temporarily overriding caution. That's not supposed to exist outside of theoretical papers. Evidently, someone didn't read those papers, Mara replied dryly. She straightened her uniform jacket, a gesture from another lifetime when such things had mattered. Celine broadcast shipwide, all hands battle stations. She saw Joran's questioning look. Just in case. As the klaxon sounded, Mara strode back toward the bridge, her officers following. The crew they passed in the corridors moved with renewed purpose, eyes alert after months of dull routine. Even the possibility of danger was preferable to the certainty of slow death. On the bridge, the mysterious vessel filled the main view screen. Now, they could see strange patterns across its hull, like black veins pulsing against the darkness. They're hailing us, reported the communications officer, a young woman whose name Mara had to search for Ensign Daria. On screen, Mara ordered, squaring her shoulders. The image shifted to reveal a man of perhaps 40 standard years, with close-cropped gray hair, and eyes so dark they appeared almost black. He wore a fitted uniform of charcoal gray, with no insignia or rank markers. Captain Kalin, he said, his voice matching the transmission. I am Commander Auric Vale of the Hidden Line vessel, Shadow's Reach. A pleasure to finally meet you. Finally, Mara questioned. You've been watching us. Vale inclined his head slightly. We monitor the rim. Your distress calls have been broadcasting for over 2 years. We've been aware of your situation. Yet you're only now offering help, Joran cut in suspicion, evident in his tone. Vale's expression didn't change. The rim is vast exotave, and your alliance made it clear decades ago that our assistance was neither required nor welcome in what they consider their territory. Mara frowned. You know our names, our ranks. We have access to alliance personnel files, Vale replied simply. Among other things. What exactly is the Hidden Line, Commander? Mara asked directly. For the first time, a smile touched Vale's stern features. We are what remains of humanity's true explorers, Captain. While your alliance consolidated power and focused inward, we continued outward. We are a diaspora of colonies, outposts and ships that operate beyond alliance space and alliance constraints. Separatists, Joran muttered. More like the unacknowledged children who grew up and built their own house, Vale corrected. But this conversation might be better continued face to face. With your permission, I'd like to come aboard with a small team. Mara hesitated only briefly. Whatever these people were, They represented the first real contact in 2 years. Granted. We'll meet you in Docking Bay 3. As the transmission ended, Joran turned to her. Captain, we know nothing about these people. We know they could have destroyed us without warning if that was their intention, Mara replied. And we know they're the only new variable in our situation in 26 months. She looked around at her bridge crew, seeing the stirring of hope in their eyes. Right now, that's enough. Security detail to Docking Bay 3. Let's greet our visitors. The Shadow's Reach, docked with precision, connecting to the Aurora's wake, with a soft shutter that ran through the larger vessel. Mara stood in the docking bay with Joran Celine and a security detail of 4 officers whose weapons looked pitifully inadequate next to the sleek, deadly lines of the hidden line ship, now visible through the docking port windows. The airlock cycled, and Commander Vale stepped through, accompanied by 2 others, a tall woman with intricate tattoos spiraling up her neck, and a broad-shouldered man whose right arm appeared to be a sophisticated prosthetic. Captain Kalin, Vale said with a formal nod. May I present my second Lysandra Voss and our chief engineer Dex Merrick. Welcome aboard the Aurora's wake, Mara replied, with equal formality. My executive officer Joran Teve and our chief scientist Dr. Selene Rowe. Pleasantries exchanged and awkward silence fell. 2 years of isolation had left Mara's social skills rusty at best. It was Selene who broke the silence. Your ship that cloaking technology. It shouldn't be possible with current physics models. Engineer Merrick grinned, his weathered face creasing. Current Alliance physics models, you mean? The rim's been pushing boundaries for decades, while the core has been patting itself on the back for minor variations on old tech. Before Selene could respond, Vale cut in smoothly. Perhaps we could continue this discussion somewhere more comfortable, and in the process, we can explain why we're here. Mara led them to the conference room, noticing how Vale's team observed everything with careful eyes, noting the flickering lights in less essential corridors, the emergency patches on some conduits, the worn look of the crew they passed. Assessing, cataloging. Once seated, Vale didn't waste time. Your ship is dying, Captain. You have perhaps a year before critical systems begin cascading failures. We're offering you and your crew passage to safe harbor. What's the cost? Joran asked bluntly. Joran, Mara cautioned, but Vale waved it off. A fair question. The hidden line doesn't operate on Alliance credit or barter systems. We function on contribution and need. Your crew includes scientists, engineers, medical personnel, skills always valued. And your ship, while failing, contains technology and resources that could be salvaged. You want to scrap my ship, Mara said flatly. Vale met her gaze directly. I want to save your crew, Captain. The ship is already lost, you just haven't accepted it yet. His words struck like a physical blow. Mara had known somewhere deep inside that the Aurora's wake would never fly properly again, that their situation was terminal. But hearing it stated so baldly by this stranger made her chest tighten with anger and grief. And if we refuse, she asked, then we leave you with additional supplies to extend your survival time and the coordinates of the nearest hidden line outpost, should you change your mind. Vale's expression softened slightly. We're not monsters, Captain. We don't demand compliance. Why help us at all? Selene asked. As you pointed out, the Alliance hasn't exactly welcomed you. Vale exchanged glances with his officers before responding. Because despite what your history texts might claim, the hidden line began as a rescue mission. When the early Rim colonies failed and the Alliance decided they were too costly to save, the first ships of our fleet formed to evacuate those left behind. His voice took on an edge. We haven't forgotten our purpose. The implication was clear, unlike the Alliance, which had effectively abandoned the Aurora's wake. There's more, Vale continued. We didn't come across your ship by accident. We've been mapping distress signals across the Rim, creating a network of beacons. There are dozens of outposts and colonies the Alliance has written off, just as they wrote off your crew. He touched a control on his wrist, and a holographic display appeared over the conference table, a map of the Outer Rim territories, dotted with pulsing red points. Each light is a distress call. Some have been broadcasting for years. Mining colonies, research stations, settlement outposts. Vale's voice grew somber. Not all are still active. Some fell silent before we could reach them. Mara stared at the display, the magnitude of what she was seeing slowly sinking in. Not just her ship, but dozens, perhaps hundreds of sites, abandoned by the Alliance she had served faithfully for her entire career. "Why show us this?" she asked finally. "Because we need help," Vale admitted. "The Hidden Line fleet is stretched thin. We can't answer every call, especially with increasing pirate activity, targeting these abandoned outposts." "Pirates," Joran leaned forward. Lysandra Vosvale's second spoke for the first time, her voice carrying a slight accent Mara couldn't place. "Syndicates have realized the Alliance no longer protects its rim assets. They're stripping abandoned stations for technology, hijacking supply shipments, even taking survivors as labor. One outpost in particular needs immediate assistance," Vale continued. "Kolos 4, a mining colony with significant titanium deposits. It's under siege by a mercenary force hired by the Varex Syndicate. The colony has been holding out for 3 months, but their defenses are failing." "And you want us to help you save them," Mara concluded. Vale nodded. "Your ship may be dying, but it still has weapon systems and a complement of trained Alliance officers. Together, we stand a better chance of breaking the siege and evacuating the colonists." And then Mara pressed. "Then you decide. Stay with the Hidden Line, return to Alliance space with the colonists as your witnesses, or take your chances elsewhere." Vale spread his hands. "Your choice, Captain." Mara looked at Joran, seeing the calculation in his eyes, then at Celine, who was already studying the holographic map with fierce intensity. "I need to discuss this with my officers," she said finally. Vale nodded and rose. "Of course. We'll return to our ship and await your decision." He paused at the door. "But, Captain, the people of Kolos 4 don't have the luxury of time." After they departed, silence fell over the conference room. Mara stared at the map Vale had left, displayed the red distress beacons, pulsing like wounds across the darkness of space. "It could still be a trap," Joran said, though with less conviction than before. "To what end?" Celine countered. "They could have disabled us without ever revealing themselves." "Information," Joran suggested. "Alliance tactical data research findings." "If that were their goal, they would have proposed a direct data transfer, not a combat mission," Mara said thoughtfully. Celine stood and moved closer to the holographic display. "Captain, if these distress calls are genuine, then the Alliance has abandoned more than just us," Mara finished. The weight of that realization settled on her shoulders. How many crews, how many colonists had sent desperate messages into the void, only to be met with silence? "Even if we help with this one outpost, what difference would it make?" Joran asked, ever the pragmatist. "We can't save them all." Mara looked up at him, something hardening in her chest. "No, but we can save this one. And perhaps that's where we start." She stood, decision made. Prepare the ship for combat operations. Divert power from non-essential systems to weapons and shields. Dr. Rowe, work with engineering to give me every ounce of efficiency from our remaining fuel. Her officers exchanged surprised glances. "Captain," Joran began, "are you certain?" "I am," Mara cut him off. "For 2 years we've drifted waiting for rescue that was never coming. Now we have a chance not just to save ourselves, but to be the rescue others are waiting for." She straightened to her full height, feeling something long dormant reawakening within her. It's time the Aurora's wake lived up to her name. When Vale returned an hour later, Mara was ready with her answer and her conditions. "We'll help you break the siege at Kolos 4, she told him. "But the Aurora's wake remains under my command. We coordinate as allies, not as subordinates." Vale's expression revealed nothing, but he nodded. "Acceptable. Though you should know our tactical approach may differ from Alliance protocols." "I'd be surprised if it didn't," Mara replied dryly. "Now tell us exactly what we're flying into." Vale activated the holographic display again, this time showing a rocky planetoid surrounded by hostile ships. Kolos 4 was established 30 years ago as a titanium mining operation. When the primary vein played out, the Alliance reduced support, until finally classifying it as non-viable and offering minimal evacuation options. But some stayed, Celine said. Many stayed, Vale corrected. It was their home. They developed alternative mining techniques, established hydroponics, became self-sufficient. Until 6 months ago, when deep scans revealed a previously unknown titanium deposit, richer than the first. And suddenly they became valuable again, Joran concluded. To everyone except the Alliance, Lysandra added. The Verax Syndicate moved first, offering protection in exchange for exclusive mining rights. When the colony refused, the Syndicate hired mercenaries to blockade the planet and starve them into submission. Vale's expression darkened. They've been slowly tightening the noose. Their ships intercept any attempt to bring supplies or evacuate civilians. They've bombed the main settlement twice. Why haven't they just landed and taken control? Mara asked. The colonists have defense systems, older Alliance military tech, but effective enough to make a ground assault costly. The mercenaries prefer siege tactics. Vale's mouth twisted. They know time is on their side. What's your plan? Joran asked. A joint assault to break the blockade, Vale explained. The Shadow's Reach will decloak behind their command ship, while the Aurora's Wake approaches from the opposite vector, dividing their attention. Once their fleet is engaged, we deploy dropships to evacuate the colonists. And if their fleet outnumbers us, Mara pressed. They do, Vale admitted. 7 to our 2. But the Shadow's Reach has certain advantages, and we won't be alone. At Mara's questioning look, he smiled slightly. I've called in other hidden line vessels. They'll be waiting for us at the rendezvous point. Mara studied the tactical display mind, already working through combat scenarios. We'll need to coordinate weapon frequencies, encryption protocols, recognition signals. Already prepared, Engineer Merrick said, holding up a data crystal. Everything you need to integrate with our systems. Mara took it, handing it to Joran. Have Lieutenant Karras implement this. I want weapons and shields at maximum capacity, within 6 hours. 6 hours, Vale raised an eyebrow. 6 hours, Mara confirmed. If those colonists have held out for 3 months, we're not making them wait a minute longer than necessary. For the first time, Vale smiled fully, transforming his stern features. I knew we found the right ship, Captain Kalin. As Vale and his team departed to prepare their own vessel, Mara turned to the massive task of readying a stranded research vessel for combat. The Aurora's Wake had weapons all Alliance ships did, but they hadn't been powered up in over a year. The following hours passed in a blur of activity. Joran oversaw the weapon systems, while Celine worked miracles with their remaining fuel, reconfiguring their engines for maximum burn efficiency. The crew moved with renewed purpose, exhaustion temporarily forgotten in the rush of having a mission again. 6 hours later, as promised, the Aurora's Wake disengaged from the asteroid field that had been both shelter and prison for so long. Alongside them, the Shadow's Reach rippled into visibility, its strange veined hull pulsing with energy. Course laid in for the Kolos system, Joran reported from his station. Estimated arrival time at maximum sustainable burn, 18 hours. Signal from the Shadow's Reach, Ensign Daria announced. They're ready when we are. Mara settled into the captain's chair, feeling its familiar contours embrace her. For the first time in 2 years, she felt like a captain again, not just a caretaker prolonging the inevitable. Take us out, helm, maximum burn. The journey to Kolos 4 was a tense affair. The Aurora's Wake limped along at its best speed, which was still far slower than the sleek Shadow's Reach could manage. Vale's ship matched their pace, occasionally vanishing from sensors as they tested their coordination protocols. Mara used the time to study everything Vale had shared about the mercenary fleet blockading Kolos 4. 7 ships, a command vessel, 4 mid-sized cruisers, and 2 rapid deployment ships, likely carrying ground forces. All heavily armed, all currently arranged in a blockade formation around the small mining planet. Their firepower exceeds ours by a significant margin, Joran observed during one tactical briefing. Even with the Shadow's reach, we're outgunned. Which is why we're meeting additional hidden line ships at the rendezvous point, Mara reminded him. And why we need perfect coordination on our approach vectors. 16 hours into their journey, they reached the designated coordinates. Empty space greeted them. No sign of additional vessels, Joran reported, tension evident in his voice. Signal the Shadow's reach, Mara ordered. Vale's face appeared on screen entirely untroubled by the absence of reinforcements. Right on time, Captain. Well navigated. Your additional ships aren't here, Mara said flatly. Vale's smile held secrets. They're here, holding position at coordinates being transmitted to you now. Celine, who had insisted on being present on the bridge for this phase, bent over her science station. Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy patterns at the coordinates, similar to the Shadow's reach before it decloaked. Understanding dawned. Your entire fleet has cloaking technology. Not our entire fleet, Vale corrected. Just our Phantom specialized ships designed for situations exactly like this. As they watched, space rippled at 3 different points, and sleek black ships materialized smaller than the Shadow's reach, but clearly of the same design, with the same strange veined patterns pulsing across their hulls. Captain Kalen, meet the Silent Strike, the Void Dancer, and the Knight's Promise. Vale introduced. Our infiltration squadron. Mara felt a chill run down her spine. If the hidden line possessed an entire fleet of undetectable ships, why had the Alliance never encountered them before? Or had they, and simply not lived to report it? As if reading her thoughts, Vale added quietly, We avoid Alliance patrols, Captain. We have no quarrel with your people, only with policies that abandon those who need help most. Mara nodded slowly. Decision made. Send your tactical officer over. We need to finalize the assault plan. Hours later, the joint fleet approached Kolos 4, the Aurora's wake, in the lead, while the hidden line ships maintained cloak. The plan was simple, but dependent on split-second timing. The Aurora's wake would approach openly, drawing the mercenary fleet's attention. When their ships moved to intercept the hidden line vessels, would decloak and attack from behind, catching them in a crossfire. We're entering the Kolos system, the helm officer announced. Sensors detecting the blockade fleet at expected positions. Yellow alert, Mara ordered. Charge weapons but hold fire until my command. Open a channel to the mercenary command ship. The main view screen flickered, then showed a heavy-set man with augmented cybernetic eyes, and a sneer that suggested contempt was his default expression. Alliance vessel, he said, you're trespassing in restricted space. Identify yourself and prepare to be boarded. This is Captain Mara Kalen of the research vessel, Aurora's Wake. Mara replied calmly. We received a distress call from the colony on Kolos 4 and are here to render assistance. The mercenary commander barked a laugh. Alliance doesn't answer distress calls from the Rim anymore, Captain. Your superiors made that clear when they sold mining rights to my employer. Mara kept her expression neutral, though his words sent a spike of anger through her. Had the Alliance truly sold out the colony? Nevertheless, we're here now. Stand down your vessels and we can discuss terms. No terms to discuss. This rock belongs to the Varric Syndicate now. His augmented eyes glittered. But that ship of yours might fetch a fair price. Last chance to surrender before we start stripping it for parts with, or without your crew inside. Mara cut the transmission and addressed her bridge crew. Battle stations! All hands prepare for combat. The red alert klaxon sounded throughout the ship as the mercenary fleet began to move, spreading out to surround the Aurora's wake. They're deploying to attack formation, Joran reported. 4 ships moving to our position, the other 3 maintaining blockade around the planet. As expected, Mara noted. Status of hidden line vessels. Maintaining cloak at designated coordinates. Ready to engage on your signal. Mara watched the mercenary ships approach, calculating distances and timing. Helm on my mark, execute evasive pattern Theta 3. Weapons target the lead vessel's propulsion systems. Mercenary ships in range, they're charging weapons, Joran warned. Now, Mara ordered. The Aurora's wake surged forward, then executed a sharp roll that brought its primary weapons array to bear on the lead mercenary ship. Before they could fire, the mercenaries launched their first salvo energy torpedoes that streaked through space toward them. "Brace for impact," Mara called, gripping her chair. The ship shuddered as torpedoes struck their shields. Status displays flickered, but held. "Shields at 78%, reported the tactical officer. "Minor damage to port sensor array. Return fire all forward batteries." The Aurora's wake unleashed its response, blue-white energy beams lancing out to strike the lead mercenary vessel. Direct hits against its engines, but the ship continued its approach. "Minimal damage to target," Joran reported grimly. "Their shields are stronger than intel suggested." 3 more mercenary ships were closing rapidly, weapons charged. The Aurora's wake was about to be caught in a deadly crossfire. Captain Celine called from the science station. "I'm detecting unusual energy fluctuations from the colony. They're powering up something big old Alliance tech, but massively modified." Before Mara could respond, a brilliant beam of energy shot up from the planet's surface, striking one of the blockade ships with devastating precision. The mercenary vessel listed to one side, venting atmosphere and debris. "The colonists are fighting back," Joran said with something like admiration. Mara allowed herself a tight smile. "Signal the hidden line. Execute Phase 2. Across the battlefield, space itself seemed to tear as 4 black ships materialized simultaneously, directly behind the engaged mercenary vessels. The effect was immediate and devastating. Caught completely by surprise, 2 mercenary ships took critical hits before they could even redirect their shields. "Direct hit on mercenary command vessel," reported the tactical officer. "Their shields are failing." The bridge rocked as the Aurora's wake took another hit, this one harder than the first. "Shields at 42%, Joran called out. "Damage reported on decks 5 through 8. "Reroute power from non-essential systems," Mara ordered. "Keep those shields up." The battle had devolved into chaos exactly as planned. The mercenary fleet, suddenly facing attacks from multiple directions, had broken formation. Some turned to engage the hidden line ships, while others continued to press their attack on the Aurora's wake. "The Shadow's Reach is engaging the command vessel," Joran reported. "They're calling for assistance. One of the blockade ships is moving to reinforce." "Intercept course," Mara commanded. "Fire all port batteries when in range." The Aurora's wake swung around, positioning itself between the mercenary reinforcements and the embattled command ship. As they came about, Mara glimpsed the smaller hidden line vessels executing maneuvers that should have been impossible, darting between enemy ships with preternatural agility. For several minutes, the battle raged across the Kolos system. The mercenary ships fought with desperate ferocity, but their coordinated blockade had been shattered. One by one, they began to fall back, regrouping at a distance from the planet. "They're retreating," Joran announced, disbelief in his voice. "Not retreating," Mara corrected, watching their movements. "Reassessing. Captain Vale, do you copy?" Vale's voice came through, accompanied by the sounds of alert klaxons. "We copy Aurora's wake. Be advised we've detected multiple dropships launching from the mercenary vessels. They're making for the colony." Mara's blood ran cold. "They're launching a ground assault while we're engaged up here." "Our Phantoms are too small to intercept effectively," Vale replied. "The Shadow's Reach has taken damage to our primary weapons array. We can pursue, but not with full combat capability." Mara made a split-second decision. "We'll intercept the dropships. The Aurora's wake still has functional weapon systems." "Captain," Joran protested, "our shields are severely compromised. If we enter atmosphere with—" "We're not losing that colony," Mara cut him off. "Not when we've come this far." She opened a channel to all ships. "Hidden line vessels focus on keeping the mercenary fleet occupied. The Aurora's wake will deal with the ground assault." "Acknowledged," came Vale's voice. "Be careful, Captain. We didn't come all this way to lose you now." The Aurora's wake broke formation, diving toward the planet where a dozen small dropships were streaking through the atmosphere. The research vessel was never designed for atmospheric maneuvers, but Mara had no choice. "Target the lead dropships," she ordered. "Precision strikes only, we don't want debris hitting the colony." "Target locked," the weapons officer confirmed. "Firing." Energy beams lanced out, catching two dropships mid-descent. They exploded in brilliant fireballs, the remains tumbling harmlessly away from the settlement below. "Two down," Joran reported. 10 remaining. They're dispersing, making targeting more difficult. "Continue firing. Don't let them reach the surface." The Aurora's wake shuddered violently as they pushed deeper into the atmosphere hull, plating heating from the friction. 3 more dropships were destroyed under their barrage, but the others were approaching the colony perimeter. "Captain, we've got a problem," Celine called out. 3 mercenary ships have broken off and are pursuing us into the atmosphere. "We can't engage them and the dropships simultaneously," Joran warned. "Our weapon systems can't track that many targets." Mara's mind raced. They were committed, now turning back would doom the colony. Signal the colony," she ordered. "Tell them dropships are incoming, approximately 5 vessels. Then get our shields back to maximum, even if you have to shut down life support on the lower decks temporarily." As her crew scrambled to comply, Mara opened a channel to Vale. "Commander, we've got 3 mercenary vessels on our tail. Any assistance would be appreciated." "On our way," came the immediate response. "Hold position." The bridge view screen showed the approaching mercenary ships, weapons charged and targeting the Aurora's wake. Then, as Mara watched, a black shape dropped from above the Shadow's reach, its hull pulsing with energy as it positioned itself between the Aurora's wake and the incoming threat. "Get those colonists secured," Vale's voice came through. "We'll handle these 3. The mercenary vessels opened fire on the Shadow's reach, which absorbed the barrage while returning fire with weapons unlike anything Mara had seen before, pulses of energy that seemed to phase in and out of normal space before striking their targets. With the immediate threat diverted, Mara refocused on the remaining dropships. "Target those last vessels before they land." "Too late," Joran reported grimly. "They've touched down at the colony perimeter. Mercenary troops deploying." Mara's jaw tightened. "Take us down. Alert security teams to prepare for ground support." "Captain," Joran looked at her in shock. "We're not equipped for—" "Those colonists need help," Mara cut him off. "And we're the only ones in position to provide it. Take us down, XO. That's an order." The Aurora's wake descended toward the colony, a sprawling complex of habitat domes, mining facilities and defensive installations built into the side of a mountain. Even from a distance, they could see the flashes of weapons fire as colonists engaged the mercenary forces that had landed. They touched down half a kilometer from the colony's main entrance, the ship's landing struts groaning under the strain of planetary gravity after so long in space. "Status of mercenary fleet," Mara asked, strapping on a sidearm. "Fully engaged with hidden line vessels," Celine reported. "The Shadow's reach has disabled 2 of the ships that pursued us, but they've taken significant damage." "Maintain communications with Commander Vale," Mara instructed. "I'm leading the ground team. Joran, you have the bridge." "Captain," Joran protested, "standard protocol dictates—" "This stopped being a standard mission the moment we received that transmission," Mara replied. "I need you here coordinating with the hidden line ships. If the situation in orbit deteriorates, get the Aurora's wake back to space, with or without us on board." Before Joran could argue further, she strode from the bridge. In the corridor outside, she found her security chief, Lieutenant Aliyah Norin, already assembling a team. "We've got 12 officers armed and ready," Captain Norin reported. "Limited heavy weapons, but everyone's combat certified." "It'll have to do," Mara replied. "Our priority is reaching the colony and securing the perimeter against mercenary forces." They exited through the ship's emergency ramp, emerging onto the rocky surface of Kolos 4. The air was thin but breathable, tinted with the smell of minerals and weapons discharge. In the distance, the domed structures of the colony gleamed in the light of the system's distant sun. "Movement ahead." Norrin warned, raising her weapon. Multiple signatures approaching from the colony. Mara tensed, then relaxed as she made out the Alliance-issue environmental suits, worn by the approaching figures. Colonists, not mercenaries. The leader, a weather-beaten man with a military bearing, approached cautiously. Alliance vessel. We thought we were seeing things when you appeared on our sensors. Captain Mara Kalin, research vessel, Aurora's Wake. Mara introduced herself. We received your distress call. The man's laugh was harsh. After 3 years. Better late than never, I suppose. Marshal Tobin Reed, Colony Security. He glanced at their small force. Forgive me for saying so, Captain, but you seem a bit understaffed for a rescue operation. We had help, Mara replied, gesturing toward the sky where flashes of combat were still visible. The hidden line engaged the blockade fleet while we dealt with the dropships. Reed's eyes widened. The hidden line here. There's supposed to be a myth. A myth that saved your colony, Mara pointed out. What's your situation? Reed's expression grew grim. 5 dropships made it through. Mercenaries have breached the outer perimeter and are pushing toward the central habdome. We've got civilians sheltered in the deep mines, but our defensive forces are stretched thin. How many defenders? 40 with combat training. Mostly former Alliance military who chose to stay when the company pulled out. Reed checked his weapon. Against approximately 60 mercenaries with military-grade weapons. Then let's even the odds, Mara said. Lieutenant Norrin, your squad with me. We'll reinforce the colony's western approach. Marshal Reed lead the way. As they moved toward the colony, Mara's comm unit crackled. Captain, this is Joran. Situation update: mercenary fleet is falling back, disengaging from orbit. The hidden line vessels are in pursuit, but the Shadow's reach has suffered significant damage. Understood, Mara replied. Have Dr. Rowe prepare medical facilities for potential casualties. And keep scanners focused on our position. I want to know if any more dropships attempt to land. The colony's western approach was a narrow passage between 2 ridgelines, naturally defensible but currently under heavy fire. Colonial defenders had established a barricade of mining equipment and metal plating, returning fire whenever possible. Reed led them to a position behind the barricade. Mercenaries are dug in about 200 meters ahead, he explained, ducking as energy blasts struck nearby. They're trying to push through to access the main life support systems. If they control life support, they control the colony, Mara surmised. Lieutenant Norrin, assessment. Norrin studied the terrain through a tactical scope. They have the high ground along that ridge, but their left flank is exposed. If we could circle around through that ravine, we might be able to flank them. Too exposed, Reed objected. They'd cut us down before we got halfway. Not if they're distracted, Mara countered. She turned to her comm officer. Signal the Aurora's Wake. I need a precision strike on these coordinates. She indicated the mercenaries' strongest position. Nothing lethal, just enough to shake them up and create some dust cover. Moments later, a single energy blast from the Aurora's Wake struck the ridge above the mercenary position. It wasn't powerful enough to cause casualties, but it dislodged a cascade of rocks and dust that threw the mercenary forces into momentary confusion. Now, Mara ordered, flanking team move. Norrin led half their forces through the ravine, while Mara joined Reed at the barricade. Suppressing fire, keep them pinned down. For several minutes, the battle raged across the narrow pass. The colonists fought with the determination of people defending their home, while the Alliance officers brought tactical discipline that had been honed through years of training. Norrin's flanking maneuver proved decisive. Caught between 2 forces, the mercenaries began to fall back, abandoning their position on the ridge. As they retreated, a colonial defender let out a triumphant shout. They're running, we've got them on the run. But Mara's relief was short-lived. Her comm unit crackled urgently. Captain, this is Joran. We've got a situation. 3 mercenary dropships evaded our sensors. They've landed on the far side of the colony. Reed overheard the transmission and swore. The mines. That's where we've sheltered the children and non-combatants. Mara's blood ran cold. How many guards did you leave at the mine entrance? A skeleton crew, Reed admitted. We needed everyone here at the western approach. They're vulnerable. Mara made a swift decision. Lieutenant Noren, secure this position. Marshal Reed with me. We're heading to the mines. Leaving the western approach under Noren's command, Mara and Reed led a small team across the colony compound. Signs of the ongoing battle were everywhere: scorched walls, makeshift medical stations, colonists converted to fighters. How many civilians in the mines? Mara asked as they ran. Over 100, Reed replied grimly. Mostly families with children. They reached the eastern side of the colony, where the mountain had been carved with massive tunnels for mining operations. The entrance was ominously quiet. No guards, Reed observed, raising his weapon. They've already breached. Mara activated her comm. Joran, we need reinforcements at the eastern mine entrance. And I need life sign readings from inside. How many mercenaries are we dealing with? After a moment, Joran responded. Sensors show approximately 20 mercenary signatures moving deeper into the mine system. Multiple civilian signatures retreating before them. They're hurting the civilians, Reed realized. Probably planning to use them as hostages or human shields. Mara checked her weapon. We need to move now before they reach the civilians. Options. Reed hesitated, then said, There's a maintenance shaft that runs parallel to the main tunnel. It'll be tight, but we could use it to get ahead of them, set up an ambush. Lead the way, Mara ordered. The maintenance shaft was barely wide enough for a person to crawl through, filled with dust and the smell of lubricants used on mining equipment. Mara followed Reed through the cramped space, trying to ignore the scrape of metal against her uniform and the distant sounds of mercenary voices echoing through the tunnels. After what felt like hours, but was likely only minutes, Reed stopped. Access hatch ahead. According to the tunnel layout, this should put us about 50 meters ahead of the mercenary advance near the main civilian shelter. Mara nodded. On 3, 1, 2, 3. Reed pushed open the hatch and they emerged into a wider tunnel, illuminated by emergency lighting. Ahead, they could hear frightened voices, the civilians being herded deeper into the mines by the approaching mercenaries. This way, Reed whispered, leading them toward the sounds. They rounded a bend and came face to face with a group of colonists, women, children, and elderly, being guided by a single guard, who raised his weapon in alarm before recognizing Reed. Marshal, thank the stars. Mercenaries are right behind us, maybe 2 minutes out. Get these people to safety, Reed ordered. Captain Kalin and I will delay the mercenaries. The guard hesitated, looking at their small force of 5 against 20 approaching mercenaries. Sir, the odds? That's an order, Reed said firmly. These people are your priority now. As the guard led the civilians deeper into the mines, Mara and Reed positioned their team at a natural choke point in the tunnel, a section where the passage narrowed, forcing anyone coming through to bunch together. We don't have to win, Mara told her officers. We just need to hold them long enough for Lieutenant Noren's reinforcements to arrive. Set weapons to maximum stun in these enclosed tunnels. We want to avoid structural damage. They didn't have to wait long. The sound of approaching footsteps and voices grew louder. Then the first mercenaries appeared, heavily armed figures in combat gear, moving with professional caution. Now, Mara ordered. Their ambush caught the first wave of mercenaries completely by surprise. 3 fell immediately to stun blasts, while the others scrambled for cover. The narrow tunnel worked in the defenders' favor, preventing the mercenaries from bringing their superior numbers to bear all at once. Hold position, Mara called, as energy blasts struck the rocks around them. Conserve power and make every shot count. For several minutes, the firefight raged in the confined space of the tunnel. The air grew thick with dust and the smell of ozone from energy weapons. 2 of Mara's officers were hit, though, not fatally, and Reed took a glancing blow to his shoulder that he dismissed with a grunt. How long until reinforcements? Reed asked, through gritted teeth. Mara checked her comm unit. Noren reports 5 minutes. We need to hold a little longer. But the mercenaries were adapting, using portable shields to advance incrementally, while laying down covering fire. They had nearly reached the defender's position when a new sound echoed through the tunnel, a high-pitched whine that made the hairs on Mara's arms stand up. "What is that?" one of her officers asked nervously. The mercenaries seemed equally confused, several turning to look behind them. Then, from the tunnel entrance, came a blinding flash of light, followed by multiple thuds as bodies hit the ground. When Mara's vision cleared, she saw figures moving through the stunned mercenaries' figures, in charcoal gray uniforms with weapons, unlike any Alliance issue she'd seen before. Commander Vale stepped over an unconscious mercenary, his weapon still humming with energy. Behind him came Lysandra Voss and a team of hidden line operatives securing the fallen mercenaries with efficient movements. Captain Kalin. Vale nodded, as if they'd encountered each other on a routine patrol, rather than in the middle of a firefight. "I trust we're not too late to join the party." Mara let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Your timing is impeccable, Commander. How did you find us?" "Your XO provided coordinates," Vale explained, "and we have some experience with mining tunnels." Reed stepped forward, eyeing the hidden line operatives with a mixture of wariness and gratitude. "I thought the hidden line was just a story told by long-haul freighter crews." Vale's smile was cryptic. "Sometimes stories have more truth than people realize, Marshal Reed." With the mercenaries in the mine neutralized and the civilians secured, they made their way back to the colony's main dome. Reports came in steadily. The mercenary forces at the western approach had been captured or driven off, and the blockade fleet had retreated from the system entirely. In the colony's central command center, Mara finally allowed herself to relax slightly. The cost had been high damage to both the Aurora's wake and the hidden line vessel's injuries among both crews and the colonists, but they had succeeded. Kolos 4 remained free. Reed approached her, his injured arm now properly bandaged. "Captain, I don't know how to thank you. If you and the hidden line hadn't arrived when you did—" "No thanks needed," Mara replied. "I'm just sorry the Alliance didn't respond to your call sooner." Reed's expression hardened slightly. "The Alliance wrote us off years ago. When the primary titanium veins played out, we became a liability on their balance sheets. Not worth the fuel to supply or defend us." "And yet you stayed," Mara observed. "This is our home," Reed said simply. "We built something here, something that's ours, not the Alliance's, not some corporations. That's worth fighting for." Before Mara could respond, Vale joined them. His uniform was smudged with dust and what looked like blood on one sleeve, but his composure remained unshaken. "The last of the mercenary forces have been rounded up," he reported. "We're holding them in the colony's security facility for now." "What will happen to them?" Mara asked. "That's up to the colony to decide," Vale replied. "Though I suspect Marshal Reed will be fair if not exactly gentle." Reed nodded grimly. "Justice will be served, Commander, but we don't lower ourselves to their methods." "And the colony?" Mara asked. "The mercenaries may be gone for now, but the Verax Syndicate will send others once they learn of this defeat." "That's where we come in," Vale said. "The hidden line maintains several secure outposts that would welcome Kolos Fu's expertise and resources. We can offer evacuation for any who wish to leave." Reed looked troubled. "Abandon our home after all we fought for?" "Not abandonment," Vale corrected. "Strategic relocation. Your people, your community would remain intact, just beyond the reach of both the Syndicate and the Alliance." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Joran, who approached with a datapad. "Captain, I've completed damage assessment of the Aurora's wake. The news isn't good." Mara took the pad, scanning the report. "How bad?" "Main propulsion at 23% efficiency. Hull integrity compromised in multiple sections. Life support stable, but overtaxed." Joran hesitated. "We can make it back to the asteroid field where we were stranded, maybe even limp to the nearest Alliance outpost with luck. But we can't complete our original mission," Mara finished. "And we can't defend ourselves if we encounter hostiles." The weight of that reality settled over her. They had won this battle, saved this colony, but at the cost of any real hope for their own ship's survival. Vale watched this exchange with unreadable eyes. "The offer I made when we first met still stands, Captain. The Hidden Line has resources that could repair your ship or provide your crew with new purpose if you choose to join us." Mara met his gaze. "And what exactly would joining the Hidden Line entail, Commander?" "You've shown us impressive technology and admirable principles, but there's still much you haven't shared." "Fair enough," Vale conceded. "Perhaps it's time for full disclosure." He gestured to the colony's command center. "May we use your facilities, Marshal Reed?" It's time Captain Kalin and her crew learned exactly what the Hidden Line is and why we need them. Hours later, Mara stood in silence, absorbing everything Vale had revealed. The Hidden Line was far more than a scattered group of independent colonists and ships. It was an organized network of settlements, research facilities, and vessels that had been operating beyond Alliance space for over 50 years. Founded by Alliance officers and scientists who had objected to the abandonment of early Rim colonies, the Hidden Line had grown from a rescue mission into something approaching a shadow government, one dedicated to principles the Central Alliance had long since compromised. "Our cloaking technology came from research the Alliance deemed too dangerous to pursue," Vale explained. "The living metal of our hulls was discovered on a planet the Alliance designated as uninhabitable, without proper exploration. We've built on foundations the Alliance discarded as unprofitable or impractical." Most shocking was the map Vale displayed, not just of distress calls, but of settlements the Hidden Line had already saved or established. Dozens of thriving communities that existed on no Alliance chart, populated by people officially listed as casualties of frontier expansion. "The Alliance has been systematically writing off Rim colonies for decades," Vale continued. "When resource extraction becomes too costly or difficult, they simply reduce support until abandonment is the only option. Then, they record the colonies as failed in official records." "But why keep this hidden?" Joran asked. "If the Hidden Line is doing good work saving lives." "Because the Alliance doesn't like competition," Lysandra Voss interjected. "Or evidence of their failures. The first attempts to establish independent governance on the Rim were met with military intervention justified as putting down insurrection." "So you hide instead," Mara concluded. "We survive," Vale corrected. "And we help others survive. But our resources are stretched thin, Captain. There are more calls for help than we can answer." There it was the real reason Vale had sought out the Aurora's wake. Not just to save one stranded Alliance vessel, but to recruit them to the Hidden Line's cause. "You want Alliance-trained officers," Mara said. "People with technical skills and combat experience." Vale nodded. "And, more importantly, people who understand what the Alliance was supposed to be before bureaucracy and corporate interests corrupted it." He leaned forward. "People like you, Captain Kalin. People who would risk everything to answer a distress call, even after being abandoned themselves." The offer hung in the air between them. Mara looked at her officers, Joran, whose pragmatism had kept them alive for 2 years. Celine, whose scientific curiosity had detected the Hidden Line's signal in the first place. Lieutenant Norin, who had led the flanking maneuver that secured the colony's defenses. She saw in their eyes what she felt herself, an uncomfortable recognition of truth in Vale's words, and something that had been missing for too long purpose. "I need to discuss this with my crew," Mara said finally. "All of them. They deserve to make their own choices." Vale nodded. "Of course, take the time you need." 2 days later, the crew of the Aurora's wake gathered in the colony's main assembly hall. Repairs to both their ship and the Hidden Line vessels were underway, though Mara now understood that the Aurora's wake would never truly be whole again. She stood before her crew, 134 men and women who had followed her into the unknown, survived 2 years of isolation, and then fought to save a colony of strangers. They deserved nothing less than complete honesty. "The Aurora's wake can be made space-worthy again," she began. Engineer Merrick believes we can restore enough propulsion to reach the nearest Alliance outpost in approximately 6 months. However, our research mission is effectively over, and our combat capabilities will remain severely limited. Murmurs spread through the assembled crew. Mara raised a hand for silence. Commander Vale of the Hidden Line has offered us an alternative. His people have the resources to fully repair our ship, or to provide us with new assignments among their fleet and settlements. In return, they ask for our skills, our experience, and our commitment to answering the calls the Alliance has ignored. She paused, letting this sink in. I won't pretend this is a simple choice. Joining the Hidden Line means leaving behind the Alliance we've served, perhaps being labeled as deserters or worse. It means operating outside the legal frameworks we're accustomed to. But it also means continuing the work we believed in when we joined the Alliance exploration protection of human settlements, advancement of scientific knowledge. It means answering distress calls like the one we found here at Kolos 4. Joran stepped forward, addressing the crew. Captain Kalen has asked me to present the pragmatic view. The Alliance declared us lost 2 years ago. Our families have mourned us. Our postings have been filled. Even if we return, we face an uncertain reception and years of reintegration. Celine joined them, her scientific detachment, giving weight to her words. The Hidden Line possesses technology the Alliance has deemed impossible or impractical. Their medical advances alone could save countless lives on struggling colonies. As a scientist, I can't ignore the opportunity to work with such knowledge. Lieutenant Norin spoke last, her security officer's perspective, direct and uncompromising. We've seen firsthand what happens to those the Alliance abandons. I joined to protect people. If the Hidden Line is where I can best do that, then my choice is clear. Mara looked out at her crew. I won't order anyone to join the Hidden Line. Each of you must decide for yourselves. Those who wish to return to Alliance space will be transported there safely, with no record of the Hidden Line's involvement. Those who choose to stay will be welcomed among Vale's people. She straightened to her full height. As for myself, I've made my decision. The Alliance I pledged to serve abandoned us, and countless others when we became inconvenient. I can no longer in good conscience return to an institution that betrays its core principles so readily. Her voice strengthened with conviction. I will join the Hidden Line. I will answer the calls of those in need. I will become the rescue I waited for in vain. In the end, the choice wasn't as difficult as Mara had expected. 127 crew members elected to join the Hidden Line. Only 7 mostly younger officers with strong family ties to the Alliance core worlds chose to return. 2 weeks later, standing on the bridge of the partially repaired Aurora's Wake, Mara watched as Vale's ship, the Shadow's Reach, glided into position alongside them. The colony of Kolos 4 was visible below its people, busily packing essential equipment and personal belongings for evacuation to a Hidden Line sanctuary world. Hidden Line vessels report ready for departure, Joran announced from his station. All colonists are aboard transport ships. Estimated time to designated sanctuary, 4 days at standard speed. And our ship, Mara asked. Engineer Merrick says the temporary repairs will hold, Joran replied. We won't be winning any races, but we'll make it to the Hidden Line shipyard at Novalis Station. Mara nodded, feeling a strange mixture of emotions. Grief for the Alliance mission they were abandoning, but also a profound sense of rightness, of finding a true purpose after years of drift. Captain, Celine called from the science station. I'm detecting unusual readings from the mercenary command ship wreckage in orbit. Energy signatures consistent with an active distress beacon. They're calling for reinforcements, Mara realized. The signal appears to be directed toward Alliance frequencies, not just Syndicate channels. Celine added surprise evident in her voice. Vale's face appeared on the view screen. The Verax Syndicate has legitimate contracts with certain Alliance departments. They're calling in official support. How long until they receive a response? Mara asked. Unknown, Vale replied. But we should assume days, not weeks. It's time to depart this system, Captain. Mara considered for a moment, then made her decision. Agreed. But first, there's something I need to do. She turned to her communications officer. Open a broadband channel, all frequencies. Channel open, Captain. Mara took a breath, knowing that what she was about to do would burn the last bridge to her former life. This is Captain Mara Kalin of the Alliance research vessel, Aurora's Wake, declaring our formal separation from Alliance command and jurisdiction. We have witnessed the systematic abandonment of Rim colonies and ships by the Alliance government in direct violation of its founding principles and charter. She felt Joran and Celine's eyes on her, but continued. To any Alliance vessels receiving this transmission, the people of Kolos 4 were targeted by mercenary forces working with corporate sanction. They called for help for 3 months. None came except from those the Alliance pretends don't exist. To all ships and colonies in the Rim territories, you are not forgotten. There are those who still answer when called. If the Alliance abandons, you know that others will not. She paused, then finished with simple certainty. The Aurora's Wake now sails with the Hidden Line. We will answer every call for help that reaches us. This I swear. With a gesture, she ended the transmission. The bridge was silent for a long moment. That was definitive, Joran observed dryly. It was necessary, Mara replied, both for those who need to know they're not alone and for ourselves. She straightened in her captain's chair. Set course for Novalis Station XO. Maximum sustainable burn. Course laid in, Captain. As the Aurora's Wake pulled away from Kolos 4, joining the Hidden Line fleet, Mara gazed out at the stars. For 2 years, they had drifted helpless and forgotten. Now, they moved with purpose, part of something larger than themselves. Captain, Celine called softly from her station. I'm detecting multiple transmissions, weak signals from distant points across the Rim. They're responding to our broadcast. Put them through, Mara ordered. One by one, voices filled the bridge, desperate, hopeful, determined. Colony administrators, ship captains, outpost commanders. Some had been calling for help for years. Some had given up calling entirely. All had been abandoned. All had been heard at last. Plot their coordinates, Mara commanded. Every signal, every call. She exchanged glances with Vale on the view screen. The Aurora's Wake has work to do. As the stars streaked past Mara, Kalin felt something she had thought lost forever: certainty. They were no longer stranded, helpless, or forgotten. They had become the rescuers, the helpers, the rememberers. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, others waited, not knowing that hope was already on its way.